I'm Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And we're the co-creators of the hit podcast, The Most Haunted City on Earth.
Look, we love ghosts, but we also love true crime. So we here at Haunted City Studios decided to create From One to Wicked.
A true crime podcast with a killer twist. We'll investigate,
discuss,
then rate
the most brutal and devious crimes and the monsters who commit them.
On a scale from 1 to wicked. So sit back and kill some time with us.
And remember, next time you're walking down the street,
you might just be passing a perfect wicked 10. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of From One to Wicked. My name is Madison Timmons.
And I'm JT Timmons.
And today we are going to be discussing someone who is currently on death row in South Carolina. And we figured it'd be an interesting topic to kind of go through his case since his execution is scheduled now for April 11th, which is next week from when we are filming this. So it's a pretty interesting case. I remember reading about this because JT and I, when we drive through states, will oftentimes look up different true crime cases or people on death row and trying to figure out, like, what did they do? How are they on death row? And I want to say we went over this case before it became public, discussion, if you will. And so it's interesting to kind of break it down into this way, and also knowing that this person is going to die next week.
Oh, yeah.
Attorneys for the next South Carolina inmate on death row filed a stay of execution. Mikal Mahdi's lawyers are asking for the stay, citing years of abuse at home and over 7,000 hours of solitary confinement in prison as a teen. The filing goes on to claim that Mahdi spent 86% of his life in juvenile and adult prisons, which made him suicidal and depressed. Now, Mahdi is on death row for killing an off-duty Orangeburg police officer in 2004. He will be the fifth inmate executed since South Carolina restarted the death penalty last year. So far, Governor McMaster has not granted any stays of executions. His execution date is set for April 11th.
So, how do you feel about this?
Oh, man, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
All right. So, Mikal Deen Mahdi is an American man who is currently on death row for the heinous crime of murdering a police officer in South Carolina, which is like the worst place you could kill a police officer.
Yeah.
Besides Boston.
Maybe Bama.
Yeah, I guess. Did you hear me though?
Oh.
Sorry, we've been watching the Karen Reed documentary, y'all, and so that's kind of on the forefront of our minds.
That's funny.
Yeah. But between July 2004 and the subsequent days, Mahdi, who was residing in Virginia at the time, embarked on a multi-state crime spree that involved carjacking, firearm robbery, and 2 tragic murders.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it was a crime spree. If you're going to go on a crime spree, you might as well go hard, I guess.
It's a recipe for a death sentence.
It really is. It's truly asking for a death sentence. But so Mahdi's background is a little bit told in public. So I tried to get as many details as I could to kind of give us an understanding. But so Mikal Deen Mahdi was born on March 20th, 1983 in Virginia, and he grew up in a town called Lawrenceville. Court documents reveal a troubled and chaotic childhood for Mahdi. His father, Sharif, a former Marine with an honorable discharge, had a dysfunctional family history of alcoholism and didn't complete high school.
Oh, wow.
Which definitely did not set a good example for Mikal because he kind of fell into the same footsteps. So at 27, his father, Sharif, had an arranged marriage with a 16-year-old girl from Richmond and had 2 sons, including Mahdi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
16-year-old?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
It happens.
Was that legal or?
I don't know how people get away with it, but it definitely does happen. And I want to say, depending on the state, don't quote me on this, but I want to say I've heard that depending on the state, if parents give express permission for their underage.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I've heard that too.
Their underage child
and
to
arranged.
get married. Yeah.
It was arranged. So,
exactly.
Okay. Weird.
It's still very strange.
Super weird.
Regardless. But however, Mahdi's mother left the family in 1986, which is not shocking. So he was 3 years old when she left. But Mahdi's father, who often got into trouble with the authorities due to altercations with law enforcement officers, struggled to provide for his family despite trying odd jobs. In 1991, Mahdi's father sent both him and his older brother, Salim, to live with relatives. While Salim went to live with his aunt in Texas, Mahdi went to live with his paternal uncle and aunt in Maryland at the age of 8. He also attended Scotts Branch Elementary School in Baltimore and completed 2nd and 3rd grade, but that's about as far as it went.
Okay.
So despite being an active student, Mahdi faced disciplinary issues related to respect for authority and teachers, which actually is not surprising at all considering how he ended up in prison on the death row. But
Sure.
His reading and writing skills were below grade level, and school reports revealed poor self-esteem and difficulty in relationships. Consequently, he dropped out at the 3rd grade level.
So he was no genius psychopath.
No, he had
He was no Egg Kimpa.
No, he has a 3rd grade education.
Heard.
So
Oh my God.
by the age of 12, which also is really surprising too, because I didn't think, maybe at least it was in Florida, because I know in my county, you weren't allowed to drop out until you were 16. So I'm like, that's kind of shocking, unless his dad pulled him out of school and said they were going to homeschool him, but didn't. I'm like, how did you accomplish that, But regardless, by the age of 21, Mahdi had managed to complete both his GED and community college education. And on August 23rd, 1992, Mahdi was involuntarily admitted to a psychiatric facility due to a suicide threat and was discharged on October 19th, 1992 from the Walter P. Carter Center.
Okay.
So he was going through a lot. He then returned to live with his father and brother in Virginia. And he, in December 1997, Mahdi's first criminal offense occurred when he committed breaking and entering. He was subsequently convicted of 2 counts of grand larceny and 2 counts of breaking and entering and detained in a juvenile facility, even though he was 21 years old.
He sounds like one of those sociopaths that are made, like the Eileen Wuornos type.
Absolutely. Well, that's exactly how you, from my understanding of that particular facet, that is how people become sociopaths, because they go through so much trauma in their lives that they haven't been able.
Numb.
Well, not even, they haven't learned how to properly learn social standards and cues and things like that.
I'm not making an excuse for him. It's
No,
just,
of course.
It's just like you have the Ted Bundys and you have the Eileen Wuornos.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
He's a maid killer.
He's a maid killer.
And I think it was also just like a matter of time because he was kind of in and out of crime.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that will lead eventually to someone getting killed. But now he was also after this particular incident, he was released and he moved back in with his mother in Richmond, Virginia. And in 2001, Mahdi was convicted of attacking a police officer in Virginia and sentenced to 93 months in prison. He was also given a 15-year probation.
Oh, boy. So he has had a history
of assaulting
police.
He's had a history with having issues with authority in every regard.
Yeah.
So
93 months. Like,
Yeah.
why? How many years is that? 12? Yeah.
I mean,
it's
I didn't do the
almost
math,
10.
but yeah, that sounds about right. But Mahdi was released in May 2004, but just 2 months later, he committed a series of 2 murders in 2 different states outside of Virginia, which is what we're going to be discussing. So between July 14 and July 17, 2004, Mahdi committed multiple crimes across 3 to 4 states, including 2 murders, 1 in North Carolina and another in South Carolina. So the first one was in North Carolina, and that was the murder of Christopher Boggs. And on July 14, 2004, Mahdi, a 21-year-old, stole a .380 caliber pistol, a station wagon, and a set of Virginia license plates from his neighbor. He drove the stolen car out of Virginia and headed to North Carolina, where he would commit his first murder. The next day in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Mahdi entered an Exxon convenience store, and he took out a can of beer, and when he went to the store's clerk, Christopher Jason Boggs, the clerk asked for Mahdi's identification card and checked it, And because of that, Mahdi fatally shot Boggs in the face
Oh my Lord!
over asking for an ID.
Just decided to just pop him.
I guess so. Like I think he was in the mindset that he was going to be committing crimes, and this person, because he had to ask for the ID,
That's crazy.
maybe in his mind, he was like, oh, this person knows who I am now.
He just snapped one day.
Yeah, he did. No, he really did. And after murdering Boggs, Mahdi attempted to open the cash register to steal money, but he failed. He left the store with the beer and fled to South Carolina.
Phew.
Yeah, all over a beer.
And Mahdi shot him again?
Oh, no. So he shot Boggs one time in the face, killed him.
Yeah.
And yes, he did fire another shot at Boggs' body just to determine if he was fully dead.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's,
Yeah.
it's ended.
Absolutely. But the next one, after he leaves North Carolina, he heads down to South Carolina and he commits the murder of James Myers, which is the reason why he is currently on death row.
Okay.
So on July 17th, 2004, 2 days after arriving in South Carolina, Mahdi fatally shot 56-year-old off-duty policeman James Edward Myers. Prior to the murder, Mahdi armed himself with a gun and carjacked a driver named Corey Pitts in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. He stole Pitts' car and replaced the license plates with stolen ones from Virginia. And Mahdi then headed southeast. After driving for 30...
How far does he think he's going to get doing this?
He thinks he's going all the way down to Florida.
Oh, he thinks he's going to make it.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to work for him.
Yes.
Okay.
So after driving for 35 minutes, he stopped at a gas station and attempted to buy gas using a credit card, but the pump rejected it. Mahdi spent an hour or more trying to get the pump to work, which drew the attention of the gas station workers. They called the police, forcing Mahdi to flee on foot. And on the same day, Mahdi arrived in Calhoun County and went into hiding on a local farm. He spent the day watching TV and examining the gun collection stored in the farm's workshop.
I do remember this.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
it-
This just clicked so hard.
Yes.
Before the episode, Madison was saying, we've read about this, and I just couldn't remember. I'm like, I don't think we have. Like, I knew minor details about this case just from what she's told me, like this morning. But I now I know.
Yes.
Now I know exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah. This is buckle in.
Yeah, it gets kind of crazy. But so he spent the day watching TV and examining the gun collection stored in the farm's workshop. The farm belonged to 56-year-old Captain James Meyer of the Orangeburg Police Department of
He had
Public
no
Safety.
idea he was a cop, right?
No clue. Not a clue. He was like one of the most unlucky people on that day.
Damn.
So Myers, who had served for at least 3 decades as a firefighter and policeman, was outside the farm celebrating his daughter, sister, and wife's birthday at a beach. After the celebration, Myers returned to his farm. Mahdi, who had spotted Myers, grabbed onto his .22 caliber rifle and held him at gunpoint before shooting him 9 times.
Wow.
Myers,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. It was like a full ambush.
Jeez.
Truly. So Myers succumbed to the gunshot wounds, and Mahdi then poured diesel on his body before setting it on fire.
God, I remember this. It's brutal.
Mahdi stole Myers' .22 caliber rifle, his police-issued assault rifle, and his personal shotgun, and escaped from the farm in Myers' police-issued truck. Just like all of the above
Oh, yeah.
is a perfect way to go to death row. And later that evening, Myers' wife, Amy Tripp Myers, who was also a SLED law enforcement officer, noticed that her husband was missing and became concerned. Amy drove to the farm and discovered Myers' burned body lying in a pool of blood at the workshop.
Goodness gracious. Imagine that.
I know. It's horrifying. And she reported the matter to the police. Dr. Janice Ross of Newberry Pathologists Association conducted a postmortem examination on Myers' corpse. She found that he had sustained 9 gunshot wounds, including 3 to his head. According to Dr. Ross's report, 2 of these shots traveled from the top of his head down to the base of his skull, suggesting that he was either lying down or slumping when they were fired. Since all of the head wounds reached his brain, the shooting caused immediate unconsciousness and ultimately led to his death. One of the shots to Myers' chest had struck both his lungs and heart. So every single shot was like fatal, for sure.
Yeah.
After James Myers' murder, Mahdi stole his truck. Remember, police-issued truck, which is so dumb on so many different facets because they can
track it.
They can track that easily. And he fled to Florida because what does every killer do? They always end up in Florida in some regard.
In some regard.
I don't know why, but they do. And Myers' 4-door white unmarked 2500 Dodge Ram police issue pickup containing several police weapons and body armor. The police linked Mahdi to the murder and launched a manhunt with the FBI joining the search. North Carolina police also issued a warrant for Mahdi after he was captured on CCTV as the killer of Christopher Boggs. On July 21st, 2004, police caught up with Mahdi in Satellite Beach, Florida, so the east coast of Florida, after someone complained about a reckless driver in a white pickup truck. But Satellite Police Sergeant Jeff Pearson says Mahdi did not surrender without a fight. And
I bet he didn't.
Yeah. And his quote was, jumped out of the car with a semi-automatic rifle. He wisely decided to throw it down and then took off running because they were going to shoot him.
Yeah.
Police chased Mahdi and arrested him on the 5th floor of a nearby resort. And when an officer told Mahdi, you made a good decision not to turn with that automatic weapon, the suspect responded, there were 6 of y'all, one of me. I guess that's a reasonable response, but Calhoun County Sheriff Thomas...
That's him saying, if there were less, I might have used it.
Right, exactly. But he didn't, at least. So... Calhoun County Sheriff Thomas Summers got a call from Florida right before 8 o'clock Wednesday night, and they said, Sheriff, we have your man. It's very Southern cops. Now, following Mahdi's arrest, Florida authorities extradited him back to South Carolina for investigations into Myers' murder. Mahdi was charged in court, and state prosecutors in South Carolina sought the death penalty at the request of Myers' family. Orangeburg County authorities, where Myers worked, and Calhoun County authorities, where the murder occurred. Everybody wanted the death penalty.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
I mean, it makes sense. Shot the guy 9 times, then burned his body. Yeah.
Well, and it was a police officer, and as we know from watching Karen Reed's documentary, you know, the blue, as they like to say, the blue wall goes up, and then it gets really hard to get away with anything. So into the trial, most of this occurred in South Carolina. But on August 23rd, 2004, a Calhoun County grand jury indicted Mikal Mahdi on 1 count each of murder, second-degree burglary, and grand larceny. On September 3rd, 2004, the First Circuit, Calhoun, Orangeburg, and Dorchester counties solicitor Robbie Robbins, that's a name.
Robbie Robbins.
Announced his intention to seek the death penalty against Mahdi, who allegedly remained expressionless when the prosecution filed the seek notice in court. Under South Carolina state law, murder carries either the death penalty or life imprisonment without parole. Originally, Mahdi's trial was scheduled for January 23rd, 2006, but it was postponed through his lawyer's application. After this, the trial finally took place in November 2006. The first 3 days were dedicated to jury selection, and during a routine court search before his trial, Mahdi was discovered to have a homemade handcuff key in his pocket. This man was about to break out.
Oh my gosh.
And he brought it from his prison cell to the courtroom, prompting stricter security measures to monitor him throughout the proceedings.
Dude's crazy.
He's crazy.
This dude's wild.
Like, fully. On November 28th, 2006, on the 4th day of his trial, just before the jury was set for its first day of case hearing, Mahdi expressed his intention to plead guilty to all charges. Well, because think about it. If South Carolina doesn't get him, North Carolina is going to get him.
Yeah.
And he technically, I want to say, is on parole at this point, too, in Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so... he would be screwed any way he was going to go about it.
Sure.
You might as well just take the L at this point, dude.
He's taking it. He's taking it next
and maybe
week.
He might, literally. Well, and maybe he was told to do that just because you can sometimes get life imprisonment if you cooperate.
Yeah.
So he maybe was trying to avoid the death penalty, but it did not work. So consequently, he was convicted, and the sentencing was left to the judge's discretion. Despite Mahdi's plea of guilt, the prosecution, led by David Pascoe, who defeated Robbins in November 2004, continued to argue for the death penalty. They cited Mahdi's hate and malice in his heart, his abhorrent murder of a police officer, and subsequent burning of the corpse, as well as his prior criminal history and other aggravating factors. These factors demonstrated Mahdi's disregard for human life and his status as an epitome of evil, is that they called it.
I mean, he's to be honest, I'm kind of confused as to why he's doing all this.
I think he just got a wild hair up his ass and decided he was gonna go on a crime spree.
I don't know.
Well, because think about it. He stole cars, and he prepared for that by stealing license plates.
Yeah, he stole the license plate and the 380.
So I think he was like,
Maybe get some money.
Yeah.
And
maybe get down to Florida somehow, but he just has anger issues. It's
weird.
truly, it
It's
really
really
is.
weird.
It's very bizarre. All of it's very bizarre. But I think he did have very loud.
The thing is okay, so let's say he wants the police officer's guns, money, truck, all that. He could have tied this police officer up.
But I think he found fun in that.
But that's what I'm saying is what he's doing is he's actually trying to kill people.
Yeah.
And with his, there were 6 of you, 1 of me. That's I would go after you if I didn't think I would be immediately shot dead.
Exactly.
That's what he's saying.
Well, yeah, because even the fact that he went as far as to burn the officer's body, that shows that it wasn't necessary. Because he could have just left him bleeding out. But he was like, oh, no, I'm going to take this to the next level.
Exactly.
Because I think he hated authority that much that it was somewhat enjoyable for him to desecrate an officer's body.
Maybe. Maybe.
But all of this is just speculation because he really is not very open about the reasonings of why he did these things. But now, furthermore, it was revealed in court that at the age of 15 in 1998, Mahdi had pledged to kill an officer during a 9-hour standoff, which seemed to be fulfilled with the death of Myers.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know if that I don't know if that necessarily is the exact reason. I think he's had issues with police his whole life. But
yes. I think when he broke into the barn, not to say he wouldn't have just killed a random civilian,
right?
Who owned the barn, but I think he broke into the barn and found out this is a police officer, and then maybe took the opportunity to fulfill it. Again, speculation, but
right. And
interesting.
Myers' widow, then 38, testified that her heart had died the moment her husband was murdered, and she had never been the same since. The tragedy occurred at the same shed where the couple had been married in 2003, deepening her heartbreak. On the other hand, the defense sought a life sentence for Mahdi. They argued that his troubled childhood, marked by the absence of a mother and neglect from his father, had shaped him into a criminal. We all know that's literally how people like this are created, but doesn't mean that he gets to go and kill people and then burn their bodies. That's just not how the world works. Sorry. But the defense emphasized the mitigating circumstances of Mahdi's case and urged judicial mercy on humanitarian grounds. And on December 8th, 2006, Justice Clifton Newman sentenced Mahdi to death for murdering Myers.
All right.
He cited Mahdi's lack of remorse and pointed out that he had only pled guilty after a homemade handcuff key was discovered in his pocket before the trial. Additionally, he highlighted Mahdi's other misbehaviors, including threatening law enforcement officers, which demonstrated his inability to adapt or conform to prison life.
Yeah, he's right.
So
he's right.
Yeah, I agree with him. During sentencing, Justice Newman quoted, Mahdi's actions and statements show a complete disregard for human life and a lack of remorse. He has shown no willingness to change or make amends for his actions. In extinguishing the life, hope, and dreams of Captain Myers in such a wicked, depraved, and conscienceless manner, the defendant Mikal Deen Mahdi also extinguished any justifiable claim to receive the mercy he seeks from this court.
Yeah.
That's so South Carolina, though.
That's so
brutal.
South Carolina.
They're so brutal. In addition to the death sentence, Mahdi also received consecutive jail terms of 15 years and 10 years for second-degree burglary and grand larceny, respectively. Mahdi was reportedly the youngest person to be sentenced to death in South Carolina at age 23.
That is young. Wow.
It's really young.
Wow.
And this case was one of Newman's most notable cases as a judge. Newman would comment on the case of Mahdi in later years, admitting that it was a difficult decision for him to sentence Mahdi to death because he himself was an opponent of capital punishment. Now, you're probably wondering what's up with North Carolina. Well, North Carolina kind of let South Carolina take the reins on this one. Apart from his criminal charges in South Carolina, Mahdi was also charged by North Carolina authorities for the murder of Christopher Boggs. 7 years after he was condemned to death row for the murder of Myers in South Carolina in December 2011, Mahdi, who had been extradited back to North Carolina to face trial, pled guilty to one count of first-degree murder in connection with the shooting death of Boggs. Following his plea of guilt, Mahdi was sentenced to life without parole by Judge Richard Stone. Boggs' mother was reportedly present in court to witness the sentencing of her son's killer and expressed her desire for Mahdi to face justice for taking her son's life. Well, he's about to in South Carolina. Considering that Mahdi was already on death row in South Carolina for the murder of Myers, he was subsequently sent back to South Carolina to continue serving his sentence for the crimes committed there.
Okay.
And then there was a stabbing incident.
There's a stabbing incident?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
So on December 2nd, 2009, during his third year on death row at the Lieber Correctional Institution, or Lieber,
probably.
Lieber, Mikal Mahdi and the condemned serial killer Quincy Allen conspired to attack and kill a correctional officer.
Goodness gracious.
So the crazy killer spree guy and a serial killer get together. First off, why are they in the same block together?
Well, because they're both on death row.
I guess. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Duh, I didn't even think about that. But I'm like, why do they have access to each other, like, in general?
I don't know.
That feels so dangerous.
It sounds so dangerous.
Yeah. But I guess...
I agree. Like, why would they have... Anyway, I don't know.
Maybe we'll do Quincy Allen next.
I'm interested now.
As part of their plan, they removed metal strips from air ducts and crafted makeshift knives. After approaching a prison officer named Nathan Sasser, requesting permission to visit the basketball court, they ambushed him, stabbing him multiple times.
Whoa.
Their escape attempt through the fence failed when the other prison staff intervened, firing tear gas and rubber bullets. And despite sustaining multiple stab wounds, Sasser survived and was treated at the Medical University of South Carolina, or MUSC. However, the trauma led to the development of PTSD and anxiety attacks, ultimately resulting in his job dismissal.
Yeah.
Both Allen and Mahdi, stripped of their privileges, including outside recreation, visitation, phone use, and canteen items, were charged with assault. However, since both men were already sentenced to death, the prosecution eventually dropped the charges against Mahdi. In the aftermath, Allen continued his appeals against his death sentence. In 2022, a federal appellate court overturned his death sentence.
Really?
But yeah. But then on July 23rd, 2024, Allen was resentenced to life imprisonment after reaching a plea deal with the prosecution and waiving his right to further appeals.
Wow.
So in 2020,
even after that?
I know, literally. I'm like, who looked at this case and was like, yeah, this guy's fine. Like, he's causing problems even in prison.
Yeah.
You know? So in 2023, Mahdi, along with several other death row inmates, filed a lawsuit against the state of South Carolina. And the lawsuit challenged the state's introduction of the electric chair and firing squad, which is quite ironic because he chose firing squad.
Yeah.
As alternative execution methods. The inmates argued that these methods were unconstitutional because they could cause unnecessary pain and suffering, amounting to cruel and unusual punishments.
I mean, he shot a guy 9 times and he only gets shot 3.
I
So
guess, yeah.
I would say that's pretty.
I mean, like, I can see where they're coming from with the electric chair because there's a lot of variables with that can go wrong and leave somebody just like brain dead but still alive, you know? But otherwise, I'm like, who's truly picking the electric chair? I think, you know.
I don't think anybody would pick the electric chair.
Personally, like JT and I were talking, I'm like, if somebody said, okay, you have to pick one of these options to get killed out of all of the death like options, I would have gone with firing squad immediately because it's like that sounds the least painful and you don't have to watch it. Like lethal injection, you have to sit there and watch somebody put poison into you and like know like as it's going in your vein, like, oh, that's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
Like that's so stressful.
It's very
Why
stressful.
does anybody want to do that? You know? I mean, I guess to each their own, but still. So the death warrant in 2025. On March 14th, 2025, a week after Sigmund's execution, which was the most recent execution by South Carolina, and it was a very big deal because he was the first person to receive firing squad.
Oh, yeah.
So after a week after that execution, Mahdi's death warrant was officially signed by the South Carolina Supreme Court. His execution was scheduled for April 11th, 2025, and Mahdi had until March 28th, 2025 to choose his preferred execution method between lethal injection, electrocution, or firing squad. If he failed to make a decision by the deadline, electrocution would be the default method.
Wow, that's the default?
I guess so. That's so brutal. Mahdi was the 5th and final inmate listed on the court order to have his execution date scheduled. Initially, Stephen Bixby, who received his death sentence in 2007, was the 6th and final inmate slated for execution in May after Mahdi. However, the South Carolina Supreme Court granted Bixby an indefinite stay of execution in a 3-2 decision.
Wow.
This decision resulted in a scheduled mental competency hearing on April 4th, 2025, to assess Bixby's mental competence for execution.
Okay.
For Bixby, if Bixby is deemed competent, his execution notice could be announced 7 days after a possible Mahdi execution, which we know now is going to be happening. So on March 28th, 2025, Mahdi chose to be executed by firing squad, becoming the second condemned inmate in South Carolina since 2025 to select this method. According to his lawyer, Mahdi did not choose the electric chair or lethal injection because he feared dying in a burned and mutilated manner in the electric chair or experiencing a lingering, prolonged death while strapped to the lethal injection gurney.
I mean, I get it, but also, like, that's a little hypocritical, isn't it?
I agree, but therefore he chose firing squad as the least of the 3 execution methods, referring to South Carolina's execution methods as quoted by Mahdi's lawyer.
Okay.
And his final appeals on March 18, 2025, Mahdi sought a stay of execution from the South Carolina Supreme Court. He claimed that his trial counsel was ineffective, failing to present mitigating factors that could have averted the death sentence during his original trial. And these factors included additional details about Mahdi's childhood that his trial lawyers allegedly disregarded. Which is like, do you really think those details were going to get out of this?
Where he definitely got execution is when he shot and burned a cop.
Yeah. Especially,
there's no other mitigating nothing. I mean,
exactly.
But he's grasping at straws here. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And nevertheless, though, the state prosecutors asserted that Mahdi's challenging childhood had no legal bearing on his case. So now he is going to be executed next week on the 11th.
Yup.
Or April 11th
Bad
if you're
dude.
listening to this later. But
bad dude.
He's pretty bad.
Will he rank high? Not
don't know.
100% sure, but let's figure it out. So I gave him an 8 for brutality. I think that the brutality of his crimes are animalistic. You know, I mean, we're talking he didn't these 2 men that were killed by him, they didn't stand a chance. The moment that he ambushed both of them, they didn't stand a chance. He was going to kill them. So I'm giving him an 8 for brutality. Premeditation, 6, just because of the plates in the gun that he stole. He knew he was going on a crime spree. That's very obvious. He didn't plan it for months. I don't think,
Yeah,
but
that's true. I didn't think about that.
we got motive, and I don't know it. So I'm going to just give him a 4. I know he did it for a reason.
right.
Maybe money, maybe just to get away. He snapped. He got tired of where he was. I don't know. But I'm giving him a 4 for motive. Difficulty of investigation, 3, because he switched those plates. It was not hard to find out that he did all of this.
Right.
I mean, come on. I don't think he tried to hide it very well either. And then body count, I'm giving him a 5. And he did kill 2 people, affected a lot of people, obviously, through those killings, like families and all of that. But I think the sheer boldness, I think it deserves at least a 5. Mm-hmm. I think that it's the killings are extremely bold, and those are mine. So I'm gonna go ahead and calculate those up.
So I gave him an 8 for brutality as well, because both incidents that he caused harm to people, it was very graphic, very intense, and even though he didn't kill the officer who he attacked in the prison, that was still pretty brutal because he left that man with mental damage because of that incident. So I think his brutality was, I mean, honestly, anytime you burn a body, you're gonna rank a little bit higher in the brutality.
Oh yeah.
Premeditation, I gave him a 3 because I mean, honestly, the only premeditation really that there was that he stole some license plates, but that very well could have been from the fact that he was like, oh, I might need these, you know? The other than that, there wasn't a very clear, I gave him a 3 as well for motive, because for the same reason, it wasn't very clear what he was doing or if he knew what he was doing. I feel like a lot of these crimes were just like, oh, this feels like a good opportunity.
Opportunistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's not very premeditated or motive driven at all. It sounded like he's like, I want to go do some fucked up shit. I don't know what I'm going to do, but here we are. And then difficulty of investigation, I give him a 2 because this man just like can't do anything.
Right, I'm pretty low. Wow.
Because he did things wrong. Like, if you're gonna be like a horrendous criminal, at least
I guess you're right.
Do it right.
That's what we're doing on this show.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're finding the most wicked, and to be truly wicked, you have to do brutal things, but you also have to do them correctly. To where you can continue doing wicked shit.
Because
I get it.
So I would have given him a little bit higher on difficulty of investigation if his entire crime record, he got caught almost immediately.
Yeah.
He's a terrible criminal in that regard.
He's dumb.
Yeah.
He's just not smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
Then body count, I gave him a 5 as well.
He's
because
extremely impulsive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just impulse.
Right.
And he responds to that impulse, really, a lot. He got a 4.7. It's pretty low, but Madison's right. It's got to be the wicked scale. It's also about competency. Right?
If you think about, people who rank high in my mind are the Samuel Littles of the world. Yes, Samuel Little didn't burn anybody's bodies, but he was able to kill so many women over such a long period of time and never get caught. He practically turned himself in.
Yeah.
And so it's
he didn't practically turn himself in.
Well, I mean,
but yeah, I know what you mean.
He gave up. He gave up at a point, which
Yes.
is why I say that.
Absolutely.
Because it's in my opinion, he could have kept going for a long time.
Yeah.
But
Thomas Sweat.
Yeah, Thomas Sweat
he's evil.
Well, because
a wicked dude. Y'all need to, if y'all haven't listened to that episode, go back.
Exactly.
That junk is wild.
Yeah, it's
that's my favorite episode.
I think that's what makes a true evil killer so scary, is because not only are they capable of doing these things, but there's a high possibility you're not going to get justice for it.
Absolutely.
And that's scary.
Yep.
Yep. So that's
true.
And that's the tea on that.
That's the tea on that.
But
alrighty.
Yeah, so Mahdi, good luck. I mean,
good luck.
I don't know what else to say to that.
Yeah.
It is an interesting case.
Good riddance.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah, I think it's it's a good thing that South Carolina is handling these cases seriously. But like I said at the beginning, I think his case especially was taken so seriously because of the fact that it was a police officer
Absolutely.
as well.
No, I mean,
Like-
you turn up the volume when you kill a police officer. You turn it up.
Yeah,
Like
they go so hard.
100%.
They go so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let us know, y'all, what you would rank Mikal Mahdi down below. You can break it down into our scale if you'd like, or you want to just give us the overall ranking, please do so. You can leave it down below in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify. We now have Spotify comments. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Spotify comments. They always are adding new features. But anyways, y'all,
Every day.
thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day when you're listening to this. And my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm JT Timmons.
And don't forget, next time you're walking down the street, you might just be passing a perfect 10.